Hi, everybody. My name is Dominic Macaluso, and today I'm going to be talking to you all a little bit about the responsible use of customer data. So, before we discuss the responsible uses of customer data and the irresponsible uses that can really harm it, it's really important to define customer data and data collection. So, customer data is essentially the data that refers to all personal, behavioral, and demographic information that is collected by marketing companies and systems for their customer base or from their customer base. And data collection really just is the process of gathering and measuring information on variables of interest in an established systematic fashion that enables one to answer their questions, test hypotheses, and evaluate outcomes. And there are really four different segments of customer data. The first one is personally identifiable data, and this really involves all that data that's tied to the individual. That includes an email address, a phone number, a home address, an ID number, or really anything else that can be used to identify a person. And because this data is very highly sensitive, it's very important for brands to maximize security in the collection and usage of this information. The second segment of customer data is called engagement data. And in short, engagement data really just details the interactions that a user has across all different brand channels. This metric enables marketers to gauge users' level of interest, preferences, intentions, really no matter the point. And as it gets collected, engagement data really helps marketers to develop a more detailed profile of any customer or audience segment. The third different segment of customer data is behavioral data, and this is all about really the action of the consumer. So things like site browsing, purchasing, email signups, this is all considered behavioral data that aims to observe and try to infer customer and consumer intent. And then finally, we have demographic data. And this really just describes a customer's characteristics, whether it be gender, age, where they're located, their occupation. And this data is really useful for targeting a wide base and creating this rich user profile that just helps marketers to access their different parts of their customer. So I think it's very important to kind of outline who owns this data, because it's important to understand who is using this responsibly and irresponsibly. So the first is called first-party data, and this is owned and collected by the company with which a user has interacted firsthand. So these companies collect their customers' behaviors, again, demographics and preferences through in-house software or systems to use in their own marketing campaigns or product development. The second is second-party data, and this really just describes first-party data that's collected that companies then share with trusted partners. And this customer data enables marketers to reach a wider audience while still delivering that personalized content. And then finally, there's third-party data, and this gets collected by a completely outside source that really has no direct relationship with the user. This data gets stored and distributed to companies targeting large audiences that strive to cast very wide nets with not as much personalization. So, how is data collected? It's very important for this to really ensure that data is collected in the appropriate way and in the appropriate manner. So first, there's just contact information, and this really just involves things like email signups that include your age or your gender, things like that. And then there's things called tracking pixels, which are used by images and JavaScript in order to track different pieces of information through things like cookies or where you've been online. Then there's transactional information, and in this, of course, we've all purchased things on the internet. It asks for different information from us. Amazon is a great example of a company that really utilizes this information. And then there's website analytics. Of course, we all know this as well. How long you even hover over an image or spend time on a page. This is all information that's tracked by these websites that they can really gain information from. We all use social media. It's not going away, and it's, of course, increasing in use. And this is a great way for companies to collect data directly from the consumer, and then also provide a more one-on-one product based on exactly where they've been, on different social media platforms. Customer surveys, we might think that they're going away, but really they're really important ways and very valuable ways to collect information, because they might involve a little bit more of an in-depth analysis of the consumer. So it's really important to understand some of the consequences of irresponsible data collection. Some of these include the inability to answer research questions accurately, the inability to repeat or validate a certain study. Improperly collected data can result in distorted findings that really just waste resources. You can mislead other researchers to pursue, what could be valuable avenues of investigation, but they really just end up being very misleading. And finally, it can even compromise decisions for public policy or company policy. There seems to be a bit of an attitude towards, forgiveness before permission, or forgiveness over permission with some companies. And, this has really resulted in a lack of consumer awareness, and they expect now to not trust, these companies, and these companies, it's really important for them to continue to try to build this trust and transparency, so that data is collected in a responsible way, and so that consumers can trust them, and it really does go both ways. So let's talk about a little bit of the importance of something called quality assurance, and this really just involves all of the activities that take place before the collection of data, and it's important for these to be, collected and observed in a very responsible manner as well, because this is kind of the prevention of data collection issues, and it involves fixing issues before they arise. And there are a lot of different failures that can arise if quality assurance is not maintained, such as uncertainty about the timing, methods responsible for reviewing data, whether it be the partial listings of items to be collected, or vague description of data collection instruments, instead of a rigorous step-by-step, instruction on how this is collected for the consumer that really can build that trust. The more that they know, the more that they, believe in the company and believe in its transparency. And then also there can be a failure to properly train the instruments used to collect data and the systems used to collect this data. It's very important that all of these activities are really handled in a very responsible manner. After quality assurance, there is quality control in data collection, and that's also very, very important for companies to maintain in a responsible manner. These are all the activities that take place during or after the data collection, and really they, identify the required responses or actions necessary to correct possible faulty data collection practices, and hopefully to minimize future occurrences. And again, there are a lot of failures that can result in irresponsible or a lack of real analysis in the quality control sector, which can include errors in data collection or the systems used to collect data, violation of protocol, and possible irresponsible collection practices. And then finally, fraud or misconduct. It can be very serious, so it's very important to be responsible when you're maintaining quality control in your data collection. So what are some steps towards, really responsible data collection? There really needs to be more of a focus on building trust and transparency. It's not enough anymore to just really send out a terms and conditions agreement, or an end user licensing agreement or disclosures. These moves may address regulatory requirements, but they really do little to help consumers. One example of a company that has really tried to build this trust and transparency is Facebook. In a Wired interview on plans to improve Facebook login, CEO Mark Zuckerberg explained that, quote, "To get to the next level and become more ubiquitous, Facebook login needs to be trusted even more. We're a bigger company now and people have more questions. We need to give people more control over their information so that everyone feels comfortable using these products," end quote. And then in 2015, Facebook launched Privacy Basics, which was an easy to understand site that explains what others see about a user and how people can customize and manage others' activities on their pages. Another great example of a company that has had its share of data security and privacy challenges is Apple. And they're really taking these concerns more seriously, and they're taking transparency more seriously. CEO Tim Cook recently stated that, quote, "A bid to be, at Apple, your trust means everything to us. That's why we respect your privacy and protect it with strong encryption, plus strict policies that govern how all data is handled. We believe in telling you up front exactly what's going to happen to your personal information and asking for your permission before you share it with us," end quote. This really just goes back to some of the, forgiveness versus permission issues that I addressed earlier, where companies understand that in a world that's becoming increasingly technologically focused, people learn more about their data and they want to know more about how their data is being used. So really building that trust and transparency is super important. Another company that's done a great job in teaching their customers is a company called Frog, which is under the Capgemini Invent umbrella. And they've just tried to really highlight, data principles and teach their customers about different ways that they're using their data and how they can protect their data. So how are some ways that companies can really take steps towards responsible data collection? The first is just giving your customers control over their data. When patients see their own data and can control how much data goes to different companies or how much a browser is using their data, it really can build that trust, and that trust really goes both ways. Another way is creating kind of the sense of in-kind value. So really just making sure that the benefits go both ways. Businesses don't need to pay users for their data. In fact, there's research that suggests that offers to do so actually reduce consumers' trust. But one company that can kind of deliver this equitable benefit is Pandora. They use data to gather information about songs and music and different ways that they can really provide a better product for their customers using their data. And both sides benefit. Thank you, everybody, for listening to my presentation. I just have a couple questions for you to discuss. The first being, what are some other ways that large corporations can build that trust and that transparency between them and their customers? And second, how can companies continue to improve upon their data collection practices to be increasingly responsible with consumer data? Thank you again. I hope this was a worthwhile presentation, and I look forward to seeing more. Thank you.